Hi everybody, so today we're going to take a look at some of the cat muscles. Most of the muscles we're going to look at is superficial muscles, so let's go ahead and start with the chest muscles. So we have a muscle right over the shoulder. So in humans we just call that clavodeltoid, but in cats we're going to call this clavodeltoid. There are three deltoid muscles in cat, but we're only going to look at the clavodeltoid. The next muscle you see right here separated is called pectoantebrachialis. Next one you have, which is kind of that triangular muscles you see right here, is the pectoralis major. Pectoralis major is followed by this parallel muscle you see right here, so this large one called pectoralis minor. And then the last one, which is basically, it starts at the end of the xiphoid process and then goes underneath the armpit, that's called the xiphi humerales. Now moving forward, we're looking at the abdominal muscles. So the abdominal muscle you have right at the center of your belly, like humans, we have this kind of the white fascia. That's identify your rectus abdominis muscle. And then if I open it up, you can see, maybe not as clearly, but you can see a white line running right in the middle of this. This line is referred to as the linea alba. On the side, on either side, on the most superficial aspect, we have a very thin layer of muscles. You can see it separated. So you have muscles underneath it, and then this is the really kind of thin muscle. This is called the external oblique. And again, if I push this back and look what's underneath it, you see another layer of muscle, which is basically going to be your internal oblique. Now in reality, you also have another layer of muscle underneath the internal oblique called the transverse abdominis, just like humans, but it's not depicted here. Now if I go ahead and take a look at the cat legs, and again we're just kind of looking at the superficial muscles, and then also on the other side we're going to look at the deep muscles. On the superficial aspect of the inner thigh, we have two main muscles. So you can see it, one right here, and then that kind of separation line right in the middle, and then this one. So this one right here is the Sartorius muscle, and this muscle right here is your Gracilis muscle. So we are going to retract your Sartorius on this side. So here is again Sartorius. So I have gone ahead and retracted the Sartorius on this side. So you can see the muscles underneath that here. So right here what I have is you have this main muscle right here at the center. This is your rectus abdominis. You have a muscle on the side, which is your vastus medialis, and then one on the top or on the outer aspect of the leg, which is your vastus lateralis. Remember that these three muscles are three of the four muscles we can find in quadriceps. So rectus femoris, vastus medialis, and vastus lateralis. Now if I go ahead, and I'm not doing this on this video, but if I actually dissect this rectus femoris right at the center and look underneath it, what I could find underneath that would be your vastus intermedius, which is basically the fourth muscle of the quadriceps. So let's look at what is underneath my gracilis. So again, gracilis is this muscle right here, you see right here. So on this side, we're gonna look at the deep muscles of the gracilis. So if I retract this one, what would you see right underneath it? So the muscles you are visible, or you can visualize here, is your pectaneus on the corner. You have adductor longus, adductor magnus, semimembranosus, and semitendinosus. So they're very similar in terms of order to what we have seen in terms of human. So the name of the muscles are very similar. So again, pectaneus, adductor longus, adductor magnus, semimembranosus, and semitendinosus. Now if I go forward and look at the anterior aspect of the leg, you see right here, there is right here when I'm running my probe on, that's your tibia. So this large muscle that is located right in front of the tibia would be your tibialis anterior. Going to the back of your leg, you have the really thick muscles or your calf muscles. So I'm gonna cover some muscles with my hand so you guys don't get it confused. So you have this really large muscle where I'm running my probe through. That's your calf muscle, like your human, and this is called the gastrocnemius. And then underneath that, you notice this one right here, that's the muscle that is underneath the gastrocnemius, so that would be your soleus. So that is all I want you guys to know for your legs on the anterior view. If I take my cat and look at the back of your cat, what you will notice is this really large muscle right here. So this muscle is called the biceps femoris. And then you're also going to see this really pronounced white fascia that is running right here, called the tensor fascia lati. So this fascia you see right here is associated with a muscle called tensor fascia lati. So biceps femoris and tensor fascia lati. You also have three muscles that are forming the gluteal region. You have, and I haven't again separated this, but I'm going to point out to where these muscles are located. So you have one right here, one right here, and one right here. So you have gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and quadrifemoris. Gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and quadrifemoris. Going farther up, so we're kind of working backward now. You have this muscle right here. So you can see this sheet of muscle that kind of starts from the back. And you see that it's going underneath the armpit. So this is your muscle called latissimus dorsi. Not to be mistaken with this one we see right here, which are your external obliques. Now, if we come over the shoulder region, again, shoulder region, you have your trapezius normally for humans. Now, in cats, the trapezius is broken down to three parts. You have one that is in the back of the neck, that's called the Clavo Trapezius. You have the one that runs over the shoulder, so this one right here. This is called the Acromia Trapezius. And then you have this muscle right here, again, not to be mistaken with your latissimus dorsi here. So we were talking about this muscle right here. This is called the spinotrapezius. So Clavo Trapezius, Acromia Trapezius, and Spinotrapezius. Now, what can we find underneath these muscles is if I open up my Acromia Trapezius, so here's my Acromia Trapezius right here, guys. So that's Acromia Trapezius like we showed on the other side. So we have opened this up and we're looking at the muscles underneath it. So what I can feel underneath this, if I was running my finger on it, that right here, this line you see right here, this is the spine of the scapula. So like humans, you have a muscle on top of the spine and one below it. So if it's on top of it, it's called supraspinatus. And if it's below it, as I put the pin through it, it's your infraspinatus. So supraspinatus, infraspinatus. And again, if I go farther down, you'll see a separation for another muscle right here, and that's your teres major. So following up, in looking at the arm, you have the muscles of the arm. So right here on this part, you see two of the three heads of your triceps brachii. So the one that you can see right here, so this is the back of your cat's head. So this muscle right here would be the triceps brachii lateral head. The one you will see right underneath it, so where I put the pin, that's your triceps brachii long head. And again, if I flip my cat and look at it inside of the arm, right here, this head would be your Triceps Brachii, and that's the medial head. So when you're talking about the three heads, remember the three heads implying that in terms of triceps, there are the medial head, the long head, and the lateral head. So make sure you guys identify these muscles. Now moving on to the forearm. So the forearm has muscles very similar to what we have seen in terms of your cat. In terms of your human. So if we look at your muscles that are located on this side, these are also be called flexors. And the muscles you will be finding on this side would be your extensors. So first, let's go ahead and get started with our flexors. So right here, we have this really thin muscle, but broad muscle right here, with a very clear fascia and tendon on it. So this large one right here would be referred to as your Palmaris Longus. And that's the easiest way to identify for you, so you can actually go ahead and use that as a marker for yourself. Now the muscle that is located moving farther away from the head, so this one right here, this would be your flexor carpi ulnaris, because it's again away from the head, it's more on the lateral view. And this one right here on this side would be your flexor carpi radialis. Moving a little bit to the side, so if you look at this right here, you have this kind of a triangular muscle. This is called the pronator teres. And right on top of that, you have a muscle called brachioradialis. So looking at the order of these muscles on this view, you have what I have right now is brachioradialis, followed by pronator teres, followed by flexor carpi radialis, followed by palmaris longus, and then on this side you will have your flexor carpi ulnaris. Now I'm going to turn the cat around and look at some of the extensor muscles we have. So right here on this view, I can show you your brachioradialis to first start with. So we have brachioradialis. We have extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis, extensor digitorum, and all the way on the lateral side, you will have extensor carpi ulnaris. If you actually turn this cat around, right next to that, you will see your flexor carpi ulnaris on the flexor side, which just kind of makes sense because flexors are going to be on this side and extensors on this side. So one more time, this is your extensor carpi ulnaris, extensor digitorum, extensor carpi radialis brevis, extensor carpi radialis longus, and then brachioradialis. One or some of the other muscle I want to point out in the arm and the neck for you guys is when we take a look at your arm muscle. So right here on top of your shoulder, underneath your clavodeltoid, you can see this muscle right here, which is going to be your biceps brachii. And then underneath the bicep brachii, and I don't know if you guys can see that very clearly, underneath the bicep brachii right here would be your brachialis muscle. And last but not least, I'm going to just show you a couple of the muscles that are found in the neck region. So we're going to look at this area. So here on the side of the head, right here, and right here, these muscles that are on the side of the head, on the side of the neck, I should say, are your sternum mastoid. Please do remember that in humans, these muscles are identified as sternocleidomastoid because they also connect to the clavicle. But in terms of the cat, the muscle only goes from the sternum to the sternum to the mastoid process. So these muscles on the side, right here, these are only called the sternum mastoid. Right at the center, you have these muscles called sternohyoid. And I didn't dissect this through, but if you guys look underneath the chin right about here, so if I remove the skin right here, there would be another muscle underneath that, and that muscle would be your digastric muscles. So that is it in terms of the name of the muscles I do need you guys to know.